You're listening to the Immortal Icons of Dance podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Johnson. For the first interview of this podcast, I really wanted to bring in someone who could talk about their experience working with one of my favorite historical dance figures, George Balanchine. I could talk about Balanchine for hours, but I'll sum him up in just a few bullet points. I'll try to make it quick. Balanchine is one of the most important choreographers of the 20th century, and the catalyst for what became a uniquely American style of ballet. He was born in 1904 in St. Petersburg, Russia, where he attended the Imperial Ballet School from the ages of 9 to 17. After graduating, he was a member of the Serenade Ballet for a few years before defecting from what was then the Soviet Union. He ended up in Paris, where he worked with Sergei Diaghilev's Ballet Russe for 4 years as a choreographer. Upon invitation from Lincoln Kirstein, Balanchine moved to America to co-found the School of American Ballet in 1934. After training up a generation of dancers, in 1948, the men co-founded the New York City Ballet, which begins celebrating its 75th anniversary this week. For 35 years, until his death in 1983, Balanchine led the New York City Ballet as artistic director and visionary. His ballets broke barriers and challenged people's perceptions of classical ballet. Some dubbed his style neoclassical. In his lifetime, he choreographed 465 works, ranging from Hollywood musicals to Broadway musicals, ballets, and even the circus. Those that danced for him often say that they knew they were in the presence of a genius. Today we get to hear from one of his dancers, Susan Pilarre. She began attending the School of American Ballet when she was 10 years old, and at the age of 15, she was invited by Balanchine to join the New York City Ballet. She enjoyed a 16-year career in the company where she became a soloist, and after retiring from the company, she began teaching at the School of American Ballet in 1986. For 37 years, Susie has shaped dancers the way that Balanchine shaped her. She has devoted her life to his legacy. In fact, about 99% of the current roster of dancers in City Ballet have been a student of Susie's at some point. That's quite an impact. I would like to note that this interview was recorded on July 13th, 2023. Since the recording of this episode, Susie is no longer on faculty at the School of American Ballet, but she has just staged the Balanchine ballet Bourrée Fantasque for the New York City Ballet's 75th anniversary season. The season opened on September 19th, and you can catch Bourrée Fantasque on stage September 29th, 30th, and October 1st. I hope to see you at the theater, and I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did.
I'm ready.
All right. Today on the podcast, we have Susan Pilarre here to talk with us about her experiences with George Balanchine. So I want to start off by asking, could you just give us a brief timeline of your dance career, starting from SAB to the company and back to SAB again?
Yes, I can. So I came to SAB, I think in 1958, and I came because I was studying at a school with Melissa Hayden. She had a school in my town in Long Island. And she and Jaw came and did some demonstration at our local temple or something. And just, I'd never seen anything like that before. I was at, what we used to call Dottie Dinkle's Ballet School, where they had tap, toe tap, jazz, everything. And I was just like, oh my God, I have to go to that school. She was, lo and behold, she was opening school in my town. So my mother said, okay, even though we were paid up at the Dottie Dinkle School, and we went. And the school, so I went there from like 8 to 10, and Melissa, she taught maybe once a month, but she had amazing teachers, like Frank Hovey, who was in the New York City Ballet, and his wife Ruth Anna Boris taught, and Michael Mall, who also, I think it was more in ABT, but they were wonderful teachers, and she would come. And then it went bankrupt. And, there weren't too many little girls out there that cared about it as much as I did, I guess. So Melissa took me by the hand and deposited me here to my teacher, Madame Tchaikovsky. I didn't audition or anything.
Wow.
And it was just, just the most fortuitous, you know, events that happened. You know, luck is, you know, a big part of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that was lucky for me. And so I came in 4th Division in 58, and I did all the, I say all the, there were 2 children's ballets. There were 2. There was Nutcracker, and then there was another one, a ballet called Medea by a Swedish choreographer, Bridget Kuhlberg. And there were only 2 kids in it, and my Julia Peters, who was in my class, and I were the 2 children that she killed. And it was Melissa, and she killed us on stage, and it was really something. So I did that, and then I did the Nutcracker, I did Party Scene and Paul Chanel, and then I did Hoops for 2 years. And in those days, we had, there were big angels, and not, excuse me, like the Spanish guys didn't bring the table in, the angels did.
Oh.
And, you know, and we played the instruments. So that was the last thing I did in Nutcracker. And then when I was 15, I got into the company. It was so great. I had no idea that, I took the train, Long Island Railroad. My mother drove me when I was young, but then I took the train from Cedarhurst, Long Island, after school. But because there were late classes, you know, there weren't that many. I mean, I took 4 classes a week, and I would get home late and do my homework. And so then when I was 15, in my sophomore year, there was a thing called special class, and people were picked, and Madame Dubrovska, who was a beautiful, wonderful teacher, one of Mr. B's ballerinas from the Ballet Russe, taught that class every day. And so I got picked for that, and it meant I had to change schools, and it meant I had to go to professional children's school. So I had to take 9 classes. And so we did. It was a big change, and but I took the train at 7:30 in the morning, and went to PCS and then to school, and then so that was September, and in January of that year, somehow I was Mr. B came to class one day, and it was Andrei Gillespie. He liked me because I could beat well, and Mr. B came. At the old school, there was it's like where Barnes and Noble is now, and there was a big platform. So you walked up the stairs to the school, and then you walked down into the studios, because the studios were on like the 2nd floor of Barnes and Noble would have been.
Is this over on Madison?
No, this is the one. No, the Madison School I wasn't at. Okay. That was the first school. Mm-hmm. This school. So this is 1950. Well, this year we're talking about is 1963.
Okay.
And so Mr. B came in, and then he walked down the steps and sat, and somehow Mr. Gillespie put me right in front of him, and he gave like 16 enchâssis, and that's 6 beats, and I could do them really well. And so that was that, and then we went. I tell this story all the time, but it's so funny because there had been girls that were apprentices in Nutcracker. And, you know, I was barely at the school for more than 4 classes a week. And we went to PCS after morning class, and then we'd go back for afternoon class. So we went to PCS, and they had a cafeteria there. We were having lunch, and so Mr. B had taken the girls who were apprentices. He took them into the company. So congratulations to them. Oh, congratulations to you. And oh, that's so great. And then somebody said to me, yes, and congratulations to you, you're in the company. And I said, no, what are you talking about? No, I just got to morning classes. That can't be right. Mm-hmm. So I went back to the school, and I went to Mrs. Gleboff, who was the secretary. at that time. And I said, somebody told me I was in the company. Or she said, oh yes, Mr. Balanchine would like you to join the company. It wasn't even an apprenticeship.
Wow.
And so, I mean, all this happened before I even knew, like, barely who anybody was. So, but, it was so great. I mean, I'm lucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Oh, the company, yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, we'll get back to the company later.
Okay.
Since we're in your SAB years, let's talk about that.
Yes.
The first time that you saw Balanchine, what was the impression? Did you understand what his
I don't think
stature
so.
was?
No, because actually, I think the first time I saw him really was when I was in the Nutcracker. And we used to, and mind you, the company was still at City Center until '64. So, so in '58 and '59, they were at City Center, and so we would rehearse the Nutcracker on the 6th floor of City Center. And I know I've been there recently for other things, but it looks different. But what it was then was just a long, not that deep, but very long room with a wood floor and no bars or mirrors or anything like that. And we would rehearse Nutcracker there, and we had, we would audition there and also rehearse there. And so it was like Janet Reed and Vita Brown were the ballet mistresses. And, they rehearsed. So then when we were on stage, they mostly dealt with us. They didn't deal that much with Mr. B. Mm-hmm. And I think, I was in the Nutcracker. Yay. It was fun. My mother and I would come in from Long Island and stay at a hotel near City Center because there were 4 shows on the weekend, not go up and back. And, it was a real adventure. And also, it was so much fun, be there and on dance.
Yeah.
I was dancing on the stage, and it was great. So I wasn't that aware. I think the first time I became so really aware of Balanchine. See, like I said, when I got into the special class, everybody, was very aware of him because these girls all wanted to be in the company, and I was a little younger, and I wasn't that. So when he would come in and watch from this balcony area that looked over the studio, they were all like totally fatoutsed, and I was like, oh, that's Mr. Balanchine, maybe. It wasn't a big deal for me then.
I wonder if I've heard many times that when people attend auditions, when they're not intent on getting the role, when they're just free and having fun and enjoying it, that's when they end up booking. I wonder if that had anything to do with, you're not trying so hard to impress, you're just enjoying dancing, and that's what came through.
The thing about Balanchine is, and in those days, I mean, and clearly I'm not trying to get into his mind at all, but I know from the people that were around us, he had a clear view of what he either wanted or needed. Like if he saw me that day, he thought he could do something with me. It wasn't about how relaxed or not relaxed I was. And I think that it was that way with a lot of my friends. The company was much smaller than that too, you filled a need, but he saw some talent.
Yeah,
obviously something.
So once you were taken into the company, is that the first time that you began having regular class with Mr. Balanchine?
Yes and no. I'll tell you, I'm having trouble remembering because we didn't have the theater and the class. I remember when I was rehearsing, we were still taking class up at the school. Maybe sometimes he taught, and maybe sometimes we were just taking advanced class at the school. I can't remember exactly, but we had class with him. And then there were all those people talk about the seminars when he used to bring teachers in from all over the country because he wanted to share this. I mean, he would say to us when he took us into the company, kiddingly, where did you study, dear? But he knew perfectly well where we studied. We studied here, and he loved the teachers. He loved, but he was moving onward from, the basic. There were certain things he wanted to see and how he wanted things to look, and it was a constant. People call it like a laboratory in a way, and so, yeah, I totally just forgot the question.
I was just asking when you began regularly taking class with Balanchine.
Yeah. So, and then, once you're in the class, and it was, so like the seminars were like 2 hours, because there's a technique, there's a style, but there's a technique in the class. And the way that the ballets look the best is when people have this technique. And sometimes if you go stage things other places, I would request to teach, because it's really kind of essential. Because it's not just, a generic Anne arabesque, it's a Balanchine looking arabesque. So, yeah, so we did have class with him a lot. And then once we moved to State Theater, that was 64. We had class every day with him. And sometimes he'd teach on Mondays, and a whole bunch of us would go. I always say, you're exhausted, but I didn't want to miss anything.
Did you have any favorite Balanchine isms, the phrases he would say in class?
Oh, there's a million of them. Oh my God, so many. What are you saving for, dear? A little more effort, dear. You have to put the fire under the donkey to make it move. Man is lazy. He doesn't want to move. You have to push yourself, and just the energy, and also a lot of the analogies are hilarious. And so that's another reason I didn't want to miss the class, because he was so funny in a way, and clever, and besides everything else, So he would say, oftentimes he would say, we're entertaining. This is show business, dear. It's show business. It's for the public. It's not, how you feel, not. One time, I know, he would say, this my favorite, one of the favorite, he would say, it's suffering. It's not days of our lives, And so, things like that, just every minute.
Yeah.
And that it was so, it's really unlike anything that you can describe to people, but you can't.
Yeah. During your years in the company, did you have a favorite Balanchine role or ballet to perform?
Oh, I loved, I don't think there's a Balanchine ballet that I didn't love to. Let's put it that way, So favorites, Serenade was one of the first things I did when I joined at City Center, and I did the Russian dance, and it's not the lead, and just the music, and I, just wherever I am, you hear that intro, and you just get goosebumps. So I did the Russian girl lead in Serenade. That was clearly a favorite, and he choreographed so many ballets on my generation, on me and my friends.
Yeah.
And it's so special to us just to be, talk about in the room where it happened.
Right.
It's unreal. Because he, and when I was very young, I didn't get how, this is genius, this is unbelievable. I was just trying to do my steps, But as you get older, and then also when you watch things that you're not in, and also when you start to stage ballets, that's when you really get the appreciation for it. It's like a miracle. Oh my God, And you
finally getting the bird's eye view of it.
Yeah, and you see the parts that you weren't in, and you learn to teach the parts that you learn in. And then you see how the whole thing, see, you walk into the room, I always say the same thing. And he could assimilate, of course I wasn't thinking that way at 16, but he could assimilate the notes on the page and the people and make like a building. You know what I mean? It's like a painting, but the architecture of it, it was like an architect.
Right.
And just that the notes on the page to him he saw that and he could just go do that.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew the score so well because he was such a consummate musician. So, and he had the score in his head when he came in. You know, people say that, people planned things. He never planned anything, but he had an idea, well, I could use, 7 people in this and count it in 5 at home,
mm-hmm.
something like that. But yeah, I mean, where did we start this question?
This question was roles that you are fond of, ones that were special.
So, I mean, yeah, I would say Serenade the most,
mm-hmm.
but everything, like, when he did Who Cares? And so I was one of the 5 couples. It's wonderful dance. And I knew that my mother was a band singer in the 40s.
Oh, really?
And I don't know that Mr. B knew that, but so I knew the words to every one of those songs.
Yeah.
And the ballet is so great. I mean, when you see the scope of the different things, and you want to talk about this now, or this is another question?
I don't know. Go ahead. Let's hear what you have to say.
Well, what I have to say is that you look at Four Temperaments, it's 1947, and it's more neoclassic modern than, because the man was a genius, than, anything you see today that is supposed to fill that thing. So, there's nothing old-fashioned ever about what he did, even because of the way we move.
Yeah.
See, if Swan Lake doesn't look like Swan Lake in England,
mm-hmm.
At the Royal Ballet, so there's that too. But like there's Four Temperaments, and then there's the classical ballets, and like Union Jack. That's the most mind-blowing thing I think I ever saw. He did it on us. I was in it, but when you saw the whole thing, and also how interesting how he was so influenced by his time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Very. And the way people move, that's Who Cares, Fred and Ginger.
Mm-hmm.
And something like Concerto Barocco, which I did a lot, all the syncopations and everything. He was so enamored of Harlem and, in the time of, my mind is gone, that kind of music. Jazz and syncopation.
Yeah.
And he used to say to us about Barocco, it's a jazzy stuff, dear. It's a jazzy stuff, Concerto Barocco. And so that's how we did it, cha, ta, 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 like that.
Yeah. So
the different styles, and just and the interests that he had, So.
What was the highest compliment he ever paid you? And maybe it was in words, but maybe it was a role, or maybe it was just a look in his eye.
I guess the highest compliment he ever paid me was when he promoted me to be soloist.
Mm-hmm.
And, after that I did some more parts and stuff like that. So I would say it would be that. It wasn't, if you got it good, that was major.
Yeah.
He wasn't interested, he wasn't interested in coddling people or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But supportive in just his energy of how he was about you while you were rehearsing, when you were dancing, you know. If he didn't like it, you would know.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't just let things go.
Right.
Right.
Was there ever a time working, or maybe even when you began teaching at the school, was there ever a time where he challenged you? Was there ever a moment of friction where you learned from that experience about, oh, I understand what was going on right now?
It's weird. I actually didn't. And I wish if there had been, we didn't videotape until 1982. If I had seen myself in all those years, I would know what he wanted from me that I wasn't doing a little bit. Because to me, it seemed like, you know, and certain times of my career I was, you know, but the not enough. I could have gotten it if I had seen myself and not how I felt about what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So that's unfortunate. I mean, sometimes it's unfortunate to see yourself all the time, but it would have been a little helpful to me. But on the other hand, you know, I had a great career, and I was really lucky to have had it with him and been there. The timing of it was so extraordinary, because a lot of us, I mean, different people will tell you that their time was the best. You know, Maria Tolchi told you their time was the best. But I think our time, I danced from 63 to 79. And all those years, and the amount of ballets, you know, that he did in those years, I think was the best time to be there.
Yeah, the Stravinsky Festival.
Oh, the Stravinsky Festival, you know, I was original in Symphony in 3 movements, and also they brought back Dances Concertante for us. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the Stravinsky Festival. But I mean, it was just amazing.
There's a standout memory from the Stravinsky Festival time, preparing or during the performances?
My standout memory of that was that, so I was in Symphony in 3 movements, and one of the 5 couples, and my very close friend Susan Handel, we were soloists together. He promoted us together. We shared a dressing room together. She passed away now almost 3 years ago, and we were very close. And so, but it was one of those times where you didn't know what the other people were doing in the other room. Mm-hmm. So we were doing Symphony in 3 movements, and I was not involved in violin and duo, and so Susie and I went out front for the premiere of duo, mm-hmm. right? And we were just like, oh my God. Like, you know, we haven't seen a step. I mean, the beauty and the simplicity and we ran backstage, and Balanchine said, Mr. P, that was so beautiful. Oh my God. It was so beautiful. And he said, really, dear? Did you really like it? I mean, completely, I'm sure, I know he knew what he did. He liked what he did. Mm-hmm. He liked that was the thing about him. He had to like what he saw in a dancer and in the ballet that he made. That's what was important, how it looks. You say that all the time. Let's see how it looks. Because why? It's show business.
Right.
But he was so humble. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He never called himself an artist, ever. You know, dance maker, a teacher. He said, I will be remembered as a teacher mostly. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's just, this was his world. He had it, he had us, and he could do what he wanted. And that's what made him happy, I think. So
I'm sure you have many, but is there a memory that whenever it crosses your mind, it just makes you smile about working with Balanchine? Whether it's funny or poignant or...
I don't know. There's a couple of things. One time, so I didn't usually do this, but one time after I was promoted, and then I went to his office and I asked to learn something, which was Scotch Girl, I think. And he said, "Okay, dear, fine." And then I said, "And now this, I didn't ask for, Moon and the Stars or the lead or anything, but so I was always dancing the things that were bright and, jump, because I could jump well and that kind of girl. And I guess I really saw myself being a little more romantic, dramatic, certain time. I just wanted to. Yeah. So one time I said to him, and I know this isn't really something you'd think of, but I'd love to do the last waltz in La Valse. So La Valse, the last waltz is, they're all part of this. I did the second one. But I wanted to do the one that was a little more of a pas de deux kind of thing. And he said, "Okay, we try. Okay." So I did Scotch, and I did Scotch for a long time. And then I did La Valse. I did one show, and then I did another show. And then my name was crossed out of the casting like this, because I understood it's because it was a part he did, I guess, for Diana Adam. It was always a taller girl part with longer legs than mine. But it makes me smile just because, oh no, this is the thing that really makes me smile about it. I said, Mr. B, so maybe just let me try and don't come to the theater that night. And he laughed. That made him laugh. Uh-huh. And it makes me laugh just talking about it. Yeah. But he did come, and he crossed up, because I wasn't his vision of how that part should look. Mm-hmm. So that does make me smile when I think about it.
Great. Do you want to take a little break? I do have some more questions, but you've been talking for a while, so.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Let's have our juice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to take a look. No. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Could you tell us how you transitioned into your teaching career at SAB?
Okay. Well, that is an interesting story, because so at the end of my career, this was about, I think it was maybe not quite at the end, but somewhere around, I retired in 79, so it's maybe 77-ish, 78. Mr. B came to me and he said, I would like you to teach at the school, because at that time, Kay Mazo and Karen von Arlingen were teaching, he had them in there teaching little kids. And I said, and Karen, she couldn't do it. She had way too much to dance, and it was at 5:00, and she had to get ready for the show. So he said, I would like you, would you like to do that? And in my, youthful ignorance, I said, and here's the thing, I had a bad back, and that was my really bad back injury. I had just come back. And I was close to 30 at that time. And so I said, so I thought maybe he wanted me to retire and teach, but the truth is, I said, because I had taught other times, I said, Mr. B, I think that what I know and what I can teach better are older. I don't know that I can teach the little children. Mm-hmm. And, that's what was really important to him. And so he said, okay, that's fine, dear, that's fine. So I sort of, I said, no, I just got back and I really want to concentrate on dancing. But what I didn't realize at the time is that I think he was done with me dancing. I mean, not done with me like, you should quit.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's not like my career was going to get any better at that point. Because I had been, I had been in the company since 63.
Yeah.
And he was always, and I wasn't a principal, I was a soloist. So the principals could be there longer. And so anyway, that was fine. That happened. And then so in 79, like August, I decided probably, they were going on tour. I wasn't asked to do anything. I decided probably I should stop. And I got pregnant. I'd been with my husband for quite a while at that point. And so I got pregnant, and then I left. And then what happened? Yeah. So then I did a lot of staging then, after I had my first child. And then I worked with Peter Martins. Mr. B got very sick. I think he went into the hospital 82 in the fall. And they were reviving On Your Toes with Natasha McCarver, which is a show he did in the 30s with Tamara Jiva, his then wife. So Mr. B had asked for me to do, and my friend Susie Hendel, who had also danced the lead in Slaughter, to do Slaughter for the show with Makarova. And then Peter was going to choreograph a new ballet because there's a ballet in his time. And so, but he was, in charge, Mr. B, but he wasn't there. He wasn't well at that point. We started it, I don't know when, in the summer. So I did that. And then worked on that show. And then Slaughter came back to the company, and then Peter brought it back. And then Suzanne worked on it. I worked on it with her a little bit. And so I did that, and then I staged ballets for the trust. I don't think they had the trust then, because Mr. B was, oh no, he was gone by then. So they did have the trust. But eventually, everybody thought that I should be teaching. And the funny thing is that the Russians, who I loved, Natasha Gleba became one of my closest friends. They didn't want me to, Peter wanted me to teach, and they didn't want me to teach because they said, you didn't want to teach little children. They were so furious at me because I had been a little child here, and they weren't having it. And then finally, there was an opportunity, and Peter said, no, Susie has to teach, and Peter put me in here. So that was 86, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how I ended up back at the farm, so to speak, or full circle.
Right.
Totally full circle.
Absolutely.
So, the school, there's nothing that's a bigger part of my life except my family.
Mm-hmm. So we are now 40 years after Balanchine's passing. How do you bring him into the studio with you each day when you're with the students?
Well, just the way I'm talking to you. He's always in my mind when I'm talking about ballet or when I'm looking at ballet or talking about it or teaching. And I hear him in my head. I hear him say the things, and then sometimes they say things, and then I have my own analogies, which are kind of, because the humor, the hard work, plus a sense of fun is so necessary. Otherwise, it's just, gruesome. Mm-hmm. And, it was so much fun to be in the room with him when he was making things. So, and the technique, I know nothing else. And not only do I know nothing else, but I feel it is the most beautiful way to dance ballet ever. And some people get it, or you have to like it. So that's my job, to make them understand why this looks better than this.
Yeah.
And this is something, whether they dance here, there, or anywhere, they can take. You know, I used to say it's like a good black dress. You can take it anywhere, dress it up, dress it classical, dress it, you know what I mean? But the beauty of it, and the sort of the beauty and the way we move, and the way, and it's all about, I'm sure you've heard this before, you know, head, hands, arms, feet, shaping feet, plie, softness. It's you know, entertainment.
Yeah.
And that's what you get. And you can see the people that have it a little more than other people. When you look. I think you probably could.
So you're in a studio, you're looking at the students at a bar. What's one correction that comes out of your mouth every day that would have come out of his mouth?
Well, you see, no, it's different. It wouldn't have come out of his mouth because we all just, you know, I was in the company with these people, you know, I mean, all these ballerinas were in the class, and, you know, Allegra, and Diana wasn't dancing but Maria Tallchief was when I first got in. Diana had gotten pregnant, but everybody worked that way, you know, and you see the famous picture of him with his heel forward and like that. And we all did that. And we looked at him and did what he did. So it wasn't like he talked a lot. You know, the plie, heel forward, I mean, but it was all by example. He could show everything. So it's not so much, but for me and us who teach here, we have to talk about it because it's not normal. It's not like I said to the girls this morning. I said, I think whoever created us did not intend for us to be in fifth position.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's against all laws of nature, but you have to make the impossible possible. Otherwise, just people on the street could do it. You know, that's what makes it. And in addition to that, it has to look beautiful. It can't just be, you know, like a sports event. Oh, if you turned 5 times, who cares if it looks like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I always say, it's like being a model and an athlete. Because you have to have the strength, but also the beauty on top of it. And so a correction I give them all the time is, you know, stand up, hold your hand, hold your arm. And, you know, if you just, Balanchine used to say, you know, like, if you walk like this, like with your arms not swinging, you dance like this. If you practice like this, you dance. You have to practice the way you're going to dance. Yeah. So, all those things. But, you know, people don't know about the heel forward, toe back, and the head bending, and the hand holding, and not, you know, they don't. So they come here to learn it. Yeah. And so we say it, especially the summer courses, very different. Yeah. I mean, we have our students that come up through, but you get a whole bunch of kids from across the country that never heard these things before. And they just want to fouette, right, and do their triples. You know, they're a little taken aback by the detail. Yeah, there's so much detail in the underbelly of what produces the beauty. Right, that's the thing. Yeah.
In your opinion, what is the most important thing that Balanchine accomplished?
Oh, he changed the way ballet looked. Totally. You know, the reaching, the stretching, the reaching, the refinement, but the freedom, but not freedom, you know, I'm so free, but, you know, within the parameters. It's classical ballet taken so much further out, you know, and it also, the thing is, people say, oh, he only liked this type and that type. And that's not true. But this type and that type and that type all do the technique. And then it's them. It's like, again, I'll use the dress analogy. You know, the way we work, the way we move, it's like a beautiful dress, but anybody who puts it on, it's them in it. But you've got to be able to fit into the dress in the first place, right?
If someone has never seen a Balanchine ballet before, what is the first one they should see?
Well,
and I'm sure everyone's answer to this would be different, but I'm just curious what you think.
I don't know. I might say something like Four Temperaments to really get a sense of the scope, because everybody knows there's Swan Lake and the full lengths and this and that and the other thing. But something like that, and he was doing that from the beginning, see? So I might say Four Temperaments, actually.
I like that answer. There have been a lot of books written about Balanchine. If you've read them, is there one that you would recommend as being the most true in tone to?
I would read the Taper book.
Okay.
Because Bernard Taper had a relationship with Balanchine. It's firsthand. It's not like somebody told me this. And I mean, the historical stuff, I think, probably is fine in the books. You know, people went to Russia. I haven't read Elizabeth Kendall's book. I hear it's very good in the historical part.
Yes, it's very, very dense and well researched.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, to me, that's so fascinating. And, you know, up until I got in the company, like, I love reading all the stuff that happened before the 60s. But I'm not interested in how somebody interprets, you know, what someone said to someone, and then he did this and he did that. I think it needs to be more firsthand. And so Taper, I just reread it recently, parts of it, and I mean, so he was going to write an article for the New Yorker about Balanchine. And so Mr. B allowed him to come to rehearsals, and he was in the rehearsals of Agon, and when Stravinsky came in, and he was there, and Martha Swope, who I knew, her first pictures she actually took, some of them were me and Paula Chanel posing. I have those.
Yeah.
And but Taper was in there for those rehearsals and many rehearsals. So he saw Balanchine in his element with the dancers, with Stravinsky, with, and he said that there was, Davidova was a good friend of Balanchine's, this woman, and she would translate what Stravinsky and Balanchine were saying to each other, and they all sat up front in that room. And I just think, you know, I know what I mean, I'm not that interested in what people think, why he behaved the way he behaved. How do they know?
Right.
How do they know? You know, I wouldn't presume to know what makes anybody do what they do, let alone a genius, you know. So I think if I would pick one, I would pick that one.
The Taper one. Okay. That's actually very good to know. I like that. The last question I want to ask you is, so the title of the podcast is Immortal Icons of Dance, and focusing on how people's legacy lives beyond their lifetime. Is there any last thing that you would like people to know that we haven't touched on about Balanchine?
Well, I do think that there are very few of us that are firsthand people anymore. And a lot of us that are firsthand people are very adamant about that it lives on. You know, Mr. B said, after me, it'll all be different. And a lot of it is. But I get upset when I see choreography changed that he didn't change. He changed things for people. oh, she had a bad knee. And then you can pick, if you're staging something, well, you can do the step before the person had a bad knee or something like that. But I get really upset at tempos being wrong, because that's everything. Everything. Because the ballets have to be danced the way they were choreographed. It doesn't matter if the person who's dancing it can't dance that fast, then get another person. Because it ruins the painting. It's like going to the museum and slash blue paint all over a Van Gogh or something. Mm-hmm. It's wrong, because it was, to him, it was everything. The music was everything. And so to really, people need to pay attention to if you want to preserve the legacy. And also the other thing is that at our school, the people that we have that work with Balanchine firsthand, Suki Shore, Kemezo, myself, and Cheryl, we, have taught lots of people that, everybody. I've taught everybody in the company except a few people that came from foreign lands. Mm-hmm. And that now we have teachers that we taught.
Right.
And they're here. And they studied, in addition, sometimes you go there, you forget, but they came back and they studied how we teach. And they teach like that. And nothing makes me happier that, when we're not here anymore, that's going to go on, because they are as adamant about it as I am. And I love that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to share
all
of your experiences.
I can't talk that much about anything else. This is the one thing I kind of know about.
This is the one thing. The Immortal Icons of Dance podcast is written, produced, and edited by me, Lauren Johnson. Our music is written by Shelby Rassler of Jenkins & Rassler, and technical support is generously provided by Libby Lessenhoff.